Welcome to There is a Method to the Madness. My name is Rob Maxwell, and I'm an exercise physiologist and personal trainer. I'm the owner of Maxwell's Fitness Programs, and I've been in business since 1994. The purpose of this podcast is to give you the real deal, to give you the science so you know what really works and what doesn't work, and most importantly, why. I'm going to talk a little bit today about overtraining, the science of it. Before I get to that, let me thank Jonathan and Lynn Gilden of the Gilden Group at Realty Pros. They are committed to providing the highest level of customer service, and they have the sales and the reviews to back that up. So give them a shout at 386-451-2412. Depending on the time today, I'm going to most likely break this up into two parts because it's a lot of information, and I want to keep the podcast a little bit shorter because I know when I'm listening to podcasts, I like to kind of get all I need out of around 10 or 15 minutes and then the next day pick it up. So I'm going to be doing that for a little bit, but overtraining has a lot of information. So this is going to be a two-parter, all right? Unless I talk super fast, and I don't want to do that. I want everybody to understand what is going on. So let's talk a little bit about overtraining. So overtraining is a real thing. And basically, it is exactly what it sounds like. It is when you over-exercise, you overtrain. So if it is a, person who is in the fitness and they don't really consider themselves an athlete or whatever, although I disagree, then it's going to be like overtraining in that sense. If it's an athlete, it's going to be that their training that they're doing specific to their sport is overtraining. Both groups can absolutely overtrain, and there are some maladaptive behaviors and way of thinking that lead to this. But overtraining is a real thing. I've heard some people kind of discount it on the beauty of social media. There's a lot of, how there is out there. There's these people that try to go like counter voices of science and try to make it seem like you're just being soft. And there were these guys, I don't even remember who they were, but they were either bodybuilders or some kind of powerlifters years ago. And they used to say, there's no such thing as overtraining. They're just under eating and under sleeping. It's like, yeah, okay. No, there is such a thing as overtraining. So overtraining is basically overstressing your body physically, which also has mental characteristics as well. So today I'm going to do the first part of this by explaining that, number one, you have to believe it's real because it absolutely is, and what parts of the body it impacts. So we get our research on overtraining mostly from Hans Selye's general adaptation syndrome of stress. We get an understanding of how stress works, and you can take overtraining and overstressing and use that synonymously because basically it is the same thing. So we get our understanding of overtraining from Selye's stress adaptation syndrome. And we absolutely know about it. Like, we've studied it both in my profession. I'm sure MDs have studied it, especially psychiatrists. I know psychologists have studied it because it's very characteristic of an emotional breakdown or nervous breakdown as well. So the similarities are absolutely parallel. And I have known athletes who have been so overtrained that they go to the doctor because they think they are suffering from a nervous breakdown. They're having symptoms of depression and anxiety unlike they've ever had before. And basically they had good physicians, and the physician said, tell me about your lifestyle, blah, blah, blah. And it turns out they're really, really overtrained. Because what we need to understand is that when we're overtrained, it's not just about like the tendons start to weaken a little bit and the muscles don't recover, although that is a negative part of overtraining for sure. We also suffer with our hormones and we get what is called adrenal fatigue. So it's not just our muscles that are overtrained, which is bad enough because if you're trying to gain muscle, for example, or even an endurance athlete who's trying to keep all the muscle they have on their body. So if they're doing something repetitively too much all the time, then they're going to impact that. So that's not good. But it's also neurologically too. So we get what's called adrenal fatigue, where basically your body really can't sleep. You start to have symptoms of depression. You get very irritable. Like here are some of the symptoms right here I'm going to list when this is before you start to crash, because you may crash if you don't do anything about it. But you know you're starting to get overtrained. And if there's nothing else going on, you pretty much can blame your physical training. Irritability, frustration, poor concentration. That is just in the resistance stage alone. All right. So now let me back up and tell you the stages of how we know about the stress adaptation syndrome. The first stage is the alarm stage. And by the way, none of this is bad. Like this model that we use, we have to be stressed to an extent to get any results. So there's this fine line we got to walk. So the alarm stage is the first stage of this syndrome, all right? And it's not bad. Like an alarm stage might be, oh, I'm going for a bike ride. All right, so, I haven't done this in a day or so. So your body is being stimulated with something different. That's all normal. That's, but your body is starting to say, wait a minute, what's this? What's going on here? But that's pretty normal. Now, if you take your appropriate time off, and part 2, I'm going to talk about more how to prevent this and how to really make your plan so this doesn't happen, and talk about how different people are going to experience this in different ways depending on what type of physiology you are, because we do have hard gainers versus not. So I'll get into all that. But the alarm stage isn't bad. It's telling us, though, that we do need a day off. We do need 2 days off, all right? So the alarm stage isn't bad. Now we go into the resistance stage. Now, again, the resistance stage isn't necessarily bad either. And the resistance stage is, okay, so I've been alarmed. Now I'm going to come back, hopefully with an adaptation. And an adaptation means that you're going to resist next time. So you're going to get a little bit stronger. Now, again, if you're taking your appropriate rest during this phase, and everybody is different, and again, there's different tools we can use to make sure that we are on the right track. There's different models we can use. There's a lot of things we can do, no matter what type of body you are, what type of person you are, to work through this syndrome and get the most of what we need out of it. So this is a, if you want to say good or bad, this is essentially a pretty good stage too. But, we're on edge here. We got to make sure we take the appropriate rest. Now, again, if we're getting the irritability, frustration, not necessarily with training, but with everything, and poor concentration, it's your body telling you need a couple days off. Now, the crash comes in the exhaustion stage. That means that you've just pushed. You have ignored every sign your body has tried to give you. And that could be like a sleepless night. That could be sore muscles that won't go away. A big sign of overtraining is your performance just is not as good as it used to be. If you work out a lot, you're a gym person, however you want to describe that, powerlifter, bodybuilder, general fitness enthusiast, that means that like you used to be able to do 12 pull-ups and now you can only do 8, and you're training just as hard, or your bench press isn't as good, whatever, your performance is going down. Now, if you're an endurance athlete or more cardio driven, then you're going to see it in your running times, your biking times, your swimming times, your triathlon times. You're just going to see your performance, and there's no other reason to explain it. Like, it's not the heat and all that. Those are all normal things, but you're going to see your performance start to slip. The sad part is when you see your performance start to go down, it's too late. You're already overtrained. Like, that's one of the last things that you're going to experience. So that is not good. Now, if you're full on in the exhaustion stage of overtraining, and again, I want you to take this serious. That's like being full on in a nervous breakdown. Like they're very similar to each other. You definitely have to start pulling back and listening to your body. But the symptoms are going to be undue fatigue, burnout. You don't want to train anymore. Depression, that borderlines on clinical depression, anxiety, and decreased stress tolerance for other factors in your life. So that's in the exhaustion stage. Now, the sad part is, once you get overtrained, most studies show it takes about 6 months to get out of that. Does that mean you don't train for 6 months? I mean, no, it means that you better be doing some reduced activity for 6 months though. So the key, like everything, is we don't want to get there. Periodization is a way of changing our workouts and building in intensity and then decreasing and peaking and doing this over again is what we've used in the exercise science world, and both for strength training and endurance athletes. Endurance athletes have picked up on this now, and they build cycles of blocks of 3 hard weeks followed by a recovery week and things like that. That's because they have done their research, and a lot of sports scientists now work with endurance athletes, so they know this. They've done their research on the stress adaptation syndrome developed by Selye, and so they completely understand what they have to do. So there are programs that really work, and as you might guess, a lot of people just don't follow them. All right. Now, I want to say one last thing on this, what it is and what are the symptoms, and then we're going to talk more about this tomorrow or the next day on what to do about it and how to prevent it. But you have to know your personality type, I think. No, I don't think. I know. Studies have shown that too. Like, not everybody is prone to overtraining. I don't know if it's good or bad. Like, it's probably neither. It's just knowing your personality. But some people aren't going to overtrain. They're just not wired that way. If they come to the gym and I train them, or one of my trainers trains them, Ellen trains them, whatever, Angelica trains them, whatever, I'd say, hey, you make sure you keep your walk to 30 minutes 5 days a week, and they might be the people that go, you don't have to worry about that. I don't really enjoy it. It's like, okay. And that's fine because they're doing it. They just don't love it. So there are more, I guess, let's call it passive types of exercisers. That means that they're doing what they have to do because they know it's good for them. And that's great. I mean, it really is. I mean, sometimes people are, critical of that, but I'm like, it's harder for them to do it than you. You love it. And I speak for myself. Like, I am definitely prone to overtraining because I do love it. And I tend to be wired that way. So I really have to watch myself. And I don't do an excellent job at it. Usually people close to me will say, maybe you need to take a couple days off there, if you know what I'm saying. So part of looking out for overtraining is knowing your personality. Are you already hard on yourself? Do you already think you're not doing good enough? Do you always think more is better? If so, you're going to be more of a candidate for overtraining. And, in my coaching and training career, I've seen people that have really struggled with body dysmorphia and almost eating disorders or possible eating disorders, but definitely body dysmorphia, are also going to be more prone to overtraining because they never think they're doing enough. And I see that a lot with endurance athletes. And unfortunately, it's kind of like a great disguise for many of them because they can say that they're doing these super long bike rides or runs or swims or whatever because they're training for a long event. But really at the bottom of that, the root of that is some deep insecurities and some unhealthy mindsets. Now, naturally, that's going to take more medical attention than just simply taking a day off because you're going to want, or a few weeks off because you're going to want to get to the root of that for sure. But definitely if you're wired more type A, or if you have had issues, like I said, where you don't feel like you're fit enough or you're always behind, you're going to be more of a candidate for overtraining. And if you're lackadaisical about your exercise and you might miss a day here or there because you just don't love it, you're probably not a candidate for it. So that's the first thing, and that's the only thing I'll say today about how to fix it and prevent it is I want you to think about what type of personality you are. And if you are the former, the type A-er, I want you to listen to part 2 for sure, because we want to make sure that you don't go down that ugly overtraining road and have to take significant time off. All right. So now let me thank Overhead Door of Daytona Beach. They are the premier garage door company in the state of Florida, and we are fortunate enough to have a branch here owned by Jeff and Zach Hawk. Please check them out at overheaddordaytona.com, because you know what? Their garage doors go up and they go down. And isn't that what we all want? See you next time. Please download. Please share to your social media. I mean, it really helps me. I want to keep this show going, so please help me out by doing those 2 things. Until next time, be Max Fit, be Max Well.